I wish I would have learned this stuff about personal finance years ago. Oh man, I wish I would have learned this stuff from personal finance. I wish I would have learned all this stuff about personal finance years ago. If I knew then what I know now, oh my goodness. We've all had that thought. I wish I would have invested 20 years ago. I wish I would have invested 10 years ago. We've all had those thoughts. Welcome back to another episode of the MD Investor. We're all month long, we're going through our series of Black Wealth. Today's episode, we're going to talk about the psychological aspect of if I only knew then what I know now. And I'm here to say it's not your fault. I mean, it sounds funny, but it's not your fault. It's not my fault. It's not our fault. You have to think about this. So you come into this world as an infant knowing nothing. And the information you start getting from the world around you. First, from your mom and dad, for people who have both parents, or maybe just from one parent, or maybe just from the guardian, whoever raised you. And you are going to pick up whatever they were putting down, whether it's by actions, whether it's by verbal communication, okay? And then that is going to have an effect on you, right? Think about how people who are raised around people who smoke. No one taught them saying, listen, today we're going to have a class on smoking. No, you see people around you do it. Therefore, when you get older, you do it. You're more likely to do it. So the reason why I say it's not your fault is that, so you come into this world knowing nothing. And then you absorb the information of the people around you. And likely, they also knew nothing about personal finance. So there you are. You come into the world with a blank slate. Then they imprint on you the little that they know. Go to school, study hard, get a good job. That's it. Make you pay your bills. That's it. And why is that? Where did they get that? And they got that from their parents. But when you step back, when you get a little older, you step back and look at the system as a whole, you realize the powerful effect the state or the government has on this process. Now, think about it. Most of us go to public school, right? Now, the government will mandate things that they want us to learn. The Pledge of Allegiance, right? You see people, even now, I go to my son's basketball game and they play the Pledge of Allegiance. People in their 50s and 60s and 70s, they remember, stand up, turn around, face the flag. You see some people put their hand over their heart. They remember that indoctrination because the government made sure that that was taught because they wanted people to be patriotic. They wanted them to know that, right? So they had us, or they had you learn the Pledge of Allegiance. Why? Because the government wants the citizens to know that information. We want you to know the Pledge of Allegiance. We want you to know the national anthem. We want you to act in a certain way, right? They'll have courses such as sexual education, right? Because they don't want a lot of diseases. They'll have courses such as physical education because they want they want the citizenry to know some basics about physical education because they know that they know that exercise is good for you and it leads to less diseases, less obesity, and ultimately less expense for the government, right? Because a lot of the people are going to be in government programmed, and they know that if they at least know some basics about jumping jacks, nutrition, right? A lot of schools mandate nutrition just so they know some basics of healthy eating, so that we don't have to pay for them in time to come. So, and even now in our modern time, you see the schools pushing stuff like different agendas. Johnny has two dads. Mary has two mothers. Why are they pushing that? Because they want people to be aware that there are different types of families. So the government knows how to teach when it comes to the agenda they want to push, right? They know how to teach, they know how to get a curriculum and how to push and teach things they want taught, things they want the citizenry to know. They know how to do it. We've seen it, right? Going to school, I remember you had to take a class in foreign language. You have an option. It can be Spanish, it can be French, it can be whatever your class, whatever your school offers, because the government would like you to know a foreign language. It didn't really help you in your personal life that much. You can't speak it. It wasn't on an SAT, but the government made you take it because they had an agenda. So now you got to ask yourself, if the government can push courses to be taken by millions and millions of kids in the country, why isn't personal finance taught? I know years ago they'd have stuff like home economics and so on, how to balance checkbook, but why isn't personal finance taught? They could easily make a curriculum like everything else. They can make a curriculum. It can be offered, you know, as an elective, or it can be they can make it mandatory, right? They make whatever they want to do. They make it mandatory. It can be mandatory. Everyone is going to be mandated to take at least whatever, at least one semester of personal finance, or maybe 2 semesters. But I'm saying they can mandate it, but they don't. I've been out of school a long time. Nothing has changed. So I said, don't blame yourself. You are under the effects of the state if you go to a public school system. And even private school or Catholic schools, I don't think they teach it either. So the state is a very powerful institution of government. And if they decide that you're not going to teach it, and if they decide they're not going to teach it, and your parents and the people around you don't know about it and how important it is and how it can really make your life better, so then you don't get it. You don't get it at school. You don't get it at home. You don't get it at church. You don't get it in your club. You don't get it anywhere. And you wake up and you're 40, 45, 50, and you realize you never got it. And then now you're in a different age where the information's out there and people are getting it. And they're like, man, if only I would have gotten this 20 years earlier. I said, don't blame yourself, because it's not your fault. The state itself was against you. They didn't want you to learn it. And nobody in your family or anybody else knew it and knew how important it was to pass on to the next generation. So be happy that you're getting it now. Get it and get it good. And don't beat yourself up, because we can't go back in time. There's a saying that says, thinking about the past for things you can't change is just more wasted time, or something to that effect. In other words, wasting time thinking about stuff that you can't really change is just more wasted time. So now what do? Now you double down and you triple down on absorbing the information, going after the information, in applying the information, and in teaching your children, because the schools didn't teach you and they're not going to teach them. But we can teach our children and our families that this is important and it can change your life. It can change your life. So there's a quick video from MD Investor to let you know that it's not your fault that you didn't learn this stuff. It was orchestrated. But now we are learning and we are taking action and teaching our children so we can break the cycle of generational poverty. MD Investor out. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube.